Yeah, you may have noticed if you've been on the market recently to buy any food stuff, the prices are going up. But there's a reason for this. The Agric Ministry is beginning to open up about the real challenges facing the sector, which is that we're experiencing some food shortages now, and they're beginning to take the measures and the steps to arrest it. That is what we are talking about today. Food is one of those things that affects everybody. And so we need to have a conversation about what is happening, why it's happening, and what is the short to medium long-term measures that the Agric Ministry is putting in place to avert a full-blown food crisis. So let's get into what we know so far. So this is, in essence, the food and nutrition situation in the Sahel and West Africa. And if you look at the map here, this is the between June to August 2020. You begin to see, for example, look at the key here that we have in essence a case of minimal food challenges across the country. So that's a picture that we have, and so you begin to appreciate. This is last year, by the way. It wasn't as bad. It was pretty minimal, as you can see in Ghana in this particular color. And then you begin to come to this year. You begin to see a different story emerge in 2021, which is June to August, same period. And then you begin to see the shade of different color emerging in this part of the country here. And then you begin to see stress is one of the key things that we are seeing. And this, by the way, is according to the OECD. And so this is pretty credible. And so this year, we're beginning to see stress emerge when it comes to our food situation, right? And then in there, you also begin to see crisis in there as well in some parts of the Upper East region. And so definitely the situation currently this year is completely dire compared to what we had last year. I mean, the differences are obvious for everybody to see. This year's food situation isn't as good, and we're beginning to see that from the OECD map as we see here. Now, one of the key things I also want to show you tonight is Ghana's staple foods exported between 2015 and 2020. Why is this important? Because one of the key measures that the Agric Ministry has introduced to deal with this food shortages we're seeing, which has had a knock-on effect on the prices of food on the market, is to stop all food exports to neighboring countries around us. Why is that important? If you don't have enough and you're experiencing shortage, why are you exporting the little you have to other countries? And so the policy now is to stop all exports to neighboring countries. And again, the ministry is taking this pretty seriously to the point where the security agencies across the borders have been alerted. You cannot drive foodstuff, mainly grains, etc., into, say, Burkina Faso and other neighboring countries. That is how bad the situation is. And this, we understand, is going to be the case until the buffer stock company says they have now stockpiled enough, hopefully, to stabilize the situation. And so the key question to ask is, I mean, if we are stopping exports, let's track and see how significant and the volumes of the exports that we've been doing over the years. Will that make it a difference? Is the key question to appreciate. And if you look at the graph here, our exports in terms of some of the key staples have been behaving very interestingly and has been on a downward decline since 2018, where we hit our peak in 99,000 metric tons of staples that we had exported. And this is according to the Food and the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, by the way. And then we see that this begins to drop to 84,000 metric tons and 70,000 metric tons in 2020. And so when it comes to food exports by itself, staples, okay, maize, etc., we're already seeing a decline in its export. And so the key question to ask is, we're still waiting for the 2021 numbers, but if we were already on a decline, and assuming if you look at the average decline, you're looking at something in a region of 10,000 metric tons. They say we drop an additional 10,000 metric tons to 60,000 metric tons, for example, and we are able to hold that constant locally. Will that address our problem? Is a key question to ask that we'll get into tonight for you. And then trends of maize exports. And maize is one of the key things that we have also stopped its exportation because we need it locally because of the food situation we are having currently to deal with. And then and there too you see that in 2021 we exported a bit more than 2019 where we had 14,000 metric tons. Many say 17,000 metric tons of maize if you keep it locally and stop exporters from taking it to the neighboring countries. That will make a significant difference indeed to the local food supply situation. Now this is key to observe also. Rice exports, same. But if you see how we don't produce as much rice, we import more than we produce, and so it's no surprise that it's pretty small. And so you still need to keep this locally because but we have the capacity to import a lot of rice. So I really don't see this as any key problems when it comes to the rice supply locally, because we have multinationals, big firms with a lot of muscle that can bring in a lot of rice that's importing it, and so that is key. But this is interesting because the Agric Ministry recently had also spoken about a policy because they wanted to promote the production of local rice and the eating of local rice, right? And so they had introduced a policy to gradually, systematically reduce the importation of rice. And so now that we are experiencing this sort of shortage, what would it mean for that policy? So that's another key interesting point to observe as we begin to have this conversation today. Then there's yam also. But yam, we know the North produces significant volumes of yam, but they are also very close to the countries, and so there's a lot of yam that makes its way out of this country. And as we see, 31,000 metric tons, according to the Food and Agriculture, was exported in 2020. Well, now we need to keep all this here locally so we can consume it because we're having challenges with supply. You see also plantain, similar story there. There's a drop in what we've been exporting over the period, which again it's important to observe what will happen. And then you have soya bean, which is pretty small also. But the key thing to observe is if you run a business and yours is just simply to export, how is government going to enforce this ban on export of local produce without a permit? And if you look at the graph that my research desk have done for us, expanded quantities of fertilizer, which is another key point, right? Distributed under the Plan for Food and Jobs. And one of the key controversial issues here is the former president last week talking about the lack of supply of fertilizer over the period, and he says the Plan for Food and Jobs is experiencing challenges. If you look at the statistics and this data, it shows that under this particular government, since the Planting for Food and Jobs program was introduced, we've actually seen a systematic climb in the supply of fertilizers, right? It's become expanded more than ever before, indeed, in our history. So if you look in recent history, just to be specific, because again, if you look at the trends, from 2016, it was 134,000 metric tons of fertilizers is what we supplied to the farmers. It dropped again in 2017 a bit to 121,000. And then you see how the line has consistently risen from a low of 121,000 metric tons. We are now talking about 520,000 metric tons. And so under the Plan for Food and Jobs, this is the evidence, right? This is the evidence. The evidence doesn't support the claim that the supply of fertilizers have dwindled. However, there is a problem in 2021 that we'll come to very shortly. And the ministry admits it, that because of COVID, it has affected the supply and the production of fertilizers. And so that has led to a shortage locally. And so prices have gone up this year, okay? And which has led to a shortfall. When fertilizers are in a shortfall, it will affect the amount and the quantities and volumes you produce. And that is what we are seeing, its effect on the low volumes you are producing this year, which has led to all the alarm that we're about just to engage with my audiences here. With my guests who are joining us shortly. Seeds too. Again, on the Plan for Food and Jobs, seed supply had gone up. And this is the evidence that the Agriculture Ministry points to when they say this is what we can show for the Plan for Food and Jobs. And so if this is the case, why do we still have the challenges we are having in 2021? The Agriculture Ministry admits that they've dropped their guard a bit, and so some mistakes have been made. We'll interrogate what these mistakes are. And if you look at the average wholesale prices are on the upward trajectory, right? Because of we saw drought, and in 2021 prices are going up. And that is why when you go to the market recently, you see that prices have generally gone up in foodstuff. This is what the line shows. And so we're going to have a conversation about all this very important one. It doesn't only feed us, it employs majority of us. Stay with me. After the break, we'll be delving into what the challenges are, what the Agriculture Ministry is doing about it, and does that even address it long term? On PM Express, Jan Frempong is a Deputy Agric Minister. Also is Dr. Charles Nyaba, who is the Head of Programs and Advocacy at the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. We also have Edward Carraway. He's the General Secretary of the Agricultural Workers Union. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Dr. Nyaba, let me start with you. Do you have a farm yourself? Hello, Dr. Nyaba, can you hear me? Kindly please unmute for me if you have muted. Mr. Kyrie, can you hear me? Mr. Kyrie, can you hear me? Okay. Let's fix that as we get the attention to the show. And of course, as you've seen, this is one of those big issues that affects almost everybody. Dr. Nyaba, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I was asking you, do you have a farm yourself?
I'm on the farm.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So as we speak, you're on the farm?
No, it's night. So,
okay.
But I'm on the field. I'm in Upper East.
Oh, okay, great. So give me a sense of, so from a farmer's, speak to me first as a farmer yourself before we come to your association. As a farmer yourself, how big is a farm? Normally on an average in a year, what do you farm though?
Okay, so let me say good evening to yourself and the listeners. Mm-hmm. For this year, I did 10,000 yam mounds.
Okay.
I did 15 acres of sorghum.
Okay.
I did 7 acres of rice. Mm-hmm. And I did 60 acres of maize.
Are you okay now?
Okay, so you have you do all the staples, and that's important. So you do yam, you do maize, you do sorghum. Now, the quantities that you produced this year, was it the same that you did last year?
Yeah, I think my maize farm is bigger than what I did last year. Mm-hmm. But this year I didn't do rice at all. Last year I did rice in the valleys, 100 acres. Mm-hmm. But this year I did only 7 acres in a different place. So I've reduced the size of the rice farm, but I increased the size of the maize farm. Last year I didn't do yam. This year I did yam. Okay. Yeah.
So from that very personal point of view, have you seen the challenge that we've all talked about, that Greek ministers talked about? Have you experienced it firsthand? What are there issues for you as a farmer personally that you've observed this year compared to say last year or the year before? And what are these?
Yeah, for personally, I think my experiences are mixed. You take the Brown Half region, that's in Kintampo, where I did the yam farm. Mm-hmm. At the beginning, the rainfall was very bad, which affected the growth of the yam. When you come to the northern part of the country, where I did the maize and the sorghum and the rice, at the beginning there was drought, but that has changed. So I think the weather for that of the farms in the northern Ghana is quite better than last year. The difference is that cost of production this year is gone up drastically comparing to last year in terms of mechanization services, in terms of fertilizer, in terms of agrochemicals. And strangely, there is also this strange fungal disease that is affecting most rice fields in the northern Ghana. And I've been a victim to that. So that is the experience I had for this year.
I mean, overall, have you experienced a reduction in the volumes you normally produce year on year? Hello, Dr. Nyaba. Hello, Doc. Okay. Let's. Do we still have him? Okay. Do we have Dr. Carraway? Hello, Mr. Carraway. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, apologies, we may have lost Mr. Nyaba there, but this is so important. I wanted to wrap up with him just to get a sense of his personal experience. Do we have Mr. Nyaba back? Mr. Nyaba, can you hear me? Okay. So, Mr. Carraway, so we had the experience there. I was curious to know from him if you did an overall comparing year on year as a farmer. I know, Mr. Carraway, you're also a farmer, are you not?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. What do you farm?
Rice.
Oh, you do rice, okay. So I'm just curious. I mean, based on your own personal experience and based on the experience of a lot of your colleagues and friends in the agri sector, overall, have you seen a reduction in the volumes you're producing this year compared to last year or the year before?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. What factors are contributing to this?
You know, the point is that if you don't have fertilizer and then you continue and then you have a large acreage, what it will mean is that once you do not apply the fertilizer, your output will be low. However, your cost will remain the same. Well, you still need labor, you still need chemicals. I mean, all that is needed. You will still have to incur that cost, but then the output will be low because you have not applied the fertilizer. So it is reasonable that if you have already incurred cost to prepare the land and the rest, it's better to stay with that cost than to incur further cost by maintaining the same size of the farm when you know very well that the output will be low.
I see. So for you, fundamentally, it is a problem with the supply of fertilizers.
Certainly, because we have become used to the chemical fertilizer, and if you don't apply it, your output will be very low.
Thankfully, the Deputy Agri Minister joined us. Mr. Frimponado, I'm grateful that you joined us on this. The Agri Ministry is taking measures now. I think that it's now beyond doubt that we are having challenges, the shortages in some of the staples, which has led to food prices. We've heard Edward Carey put it down to the lack of supply of fertilizers. Is that what the Agri Ministry's own assessment is as well, that this is largely down to shortage in fertilizer supply?
Good evening. And then let me greet my fellow panelists. Just as they are saying, fertilizers this year, because if you say a reduction in output currently, I don't know if they have harvested yet. You see, when you plant, and no matter the situation, as they are saying, the fertilizers came, but not in the quantities that they actually required. So we will assess the situation at harvesting time. So I'm not too sure if the quantities you are referring to, you are talking about this cropping season or last year's cropping season. If it is this year's cropping season, then they are yet to harvest because the northern sector where they are doing their farming, they have only one planting season. And as far as I know, this is the time that their plants whatever they planted, they are growing, and it will get to a time that they will begin to harvest. In the middle belt and then the southern sector of this country, we have 2 planting seasons, the April, May, and then August, September, which will be harvested in November, December. And then the April, May, around this time, some farms are harvesting. So we will have to wait till the harvesting period before we can assess whether outputs compared to last year are the same, or they've dropped, or we've gone high. There are several factors that account for whether these things will go down or be the same or will be high, including, as they all alluded to, you see, the COVID-19 and its havoc on even fertilizer production, the chemical fertilizer production in the countries that they produce these ones that we import from. Because of COVID-19, a lot of these companies did not produce the volumes that the world needed. And meanwhile, food is so essential. So every country needs the fertilizer. So every country scrambled for the little that were produced. And if these ones are hard to come by, naturally, especially in our case where the government, the suppliers of fertilizers give to farmers, give to Ministry of Agriculture under the Planning of Food and Jobs, and then they collect their monies later. Without the monies in hand and the prices on the world market going up, freight charges going so much up, it is become a bit difficult. So we all agree that we have these challenges. And then secondly, the weather initially was not too good. And Dr. Nyaba, you spoke to, I listened to him, and I was happy about his frankness. It is true that initially the weather played some tricks on us, but during the second half of the year, the weather, the rainfall pattern has been good. The only challenge was with the fertilizers, with the seed, the improved seed supply. I think enough improved seeds were supplied. The challenge was with the fertilizers. And although the quantities required were not supplied, at least significantly, we kept improving the situation. And I'm very sure that the farmers are going to get good harvest. It may not be at the levels of last 2 years or last year, but they are going to get good harvest because the weather has been good. And because of that, I am very confident. I'm very confident that we will get good harvest. And then the prices that are so high, because of these factors I've enumerated earlier, the prices of farm produce this year has been quite high. My only joy, compared the tuber of yam that I used to buy in May, June, one for 20 cedis, in certain cases 22 cedis, and now I get 4 of them for 20 cedis. You understand? And that tells you that when the new crops begin to come to the markets, the prices will find their levels. The forces of the demand and supply will determine the prices.
Depends. So you're banging a lot of your hopes on the harvesting season, which is yet to commence.
But I'm a farmer, and I've been a farmer from my infancy. I was born into a farm, and I'm saying that every planting season it has been the normal thing. Every planting season.
But this year, I mean, let me ask this, and be frank with me: are you expecting a bumper harvest?
Bumper in certain places, yes, but in other places, I'm not expecting a bumper harvest.
But overall, I mean, if you do an overall assessment of the countrywide situation with the harvesting season coming, would you expect a bumper harvest realistically?
I will not sit here and talk about bumper, but I know that we are going to have good harvest.
So let me ask you then, because this is key. Your ministry issued a statement just last week in which you said, quote, "We wish to assure the general public that the country will in fact experience a bumper harvest despite the recent droughts experienced in early part of the year." So that was public deception.
No, it wasn't. You see, the statement I made earlier, I said that in certain areas there's going to be bumper harvest. Whilst in the northern sector, because of the havoc of the recent rainfall, and then the fact that a lot of the fertilizer did not reach the farmers as required, I cannot talk about bumper up north. And that one is a fact.
But overall countrywide, you realistically within the current situation cannot expect overall countrywide a bumper harvest. That is a fact.
Overall, that's what I'm saying. That overall, we are going to have good harvest. But as to calling it bumper, would depend. Let's all wait till both the minor season and then the major season and the minor season harvest come up, and then when they come and we assess the situation, then we can talk of bumper. But you have to be optimistic. So maybe our release, because of what the reports we've gotten from our directors around the country, that's why the release came. But I'm also observing it from my own perspective.
Yeah, but from a purely farmer's perspective, you have to be optimistic. But you definitely be in the realm of wishful thinking to expect bumper harvest this year.
No. I disagree with you. I mean, some. You see, if I'm in the middle belt and my farm is doing so well, I can talk of bumper harvest.
Yeah,
and if overall the middle belt and then the southern sector, if we get that bumper harvest, it will reflect in the whole country. That's so. The person will not be wrong if he says they're going to get bumper harvest. I am telling you that because of the factors up north, they may get good harvest, all right, but I wouldn't call it bumper. But middle belt and the southern belt, because of the certain factors, I can talk about bumper harvest here.
Yeah, I mean.
So overall, let us not be too. Be double with semantics and words and whatever. But I'm saying that we're going to have good harvest. So whether bumper or whatever, we're going to have good harvest, and that there will be no hunger. That's the most important thing.
On that point you made about no hunger, let's go to some specific. This is about keeping them honest. The former president touched on this particular challenge just last week, and he says his brother, who is into farming, had told him that government is yet to supply fertilizers, and that has led to
hold on.
That has led to a reduction in his acreage.
Hold on.
He was right, was he not?
Former President Mahama is telling you this, and you are using it as he's doing politics. When it comes to food, we don't do politics with it. When it comes to food, we don't do politics.
No,
with
let's take the politics out. Take the politics out and look at the facts he talks about. He says the fertilizer supply challenge. We do have a fertilizer supply challenge, don't we?
Hold on. Who doesn't know about this fertilizer challenge? The ministry has said it over and over that there has been this fertilizer supply challenge. So if he goes to his brother and his brother tells, so me at the ministry, you don't believe what I'm saying, you believe somebody who says his brother has told him that this, then what
no, I only asked that because in a reply to him, the ministry said that he was doing doom mongering and that he was falsehood and that there was no food shortage. As we've learning this week, as we're learning this week, that is a fact that fertilizers are in short supply.
It's not only this week. This thing has been there. Joy News. Your people were with us when we visited the Ahafo, Bono East, and then the Ashanti and Eastern regions. The last part of June, July, we when we went around, they were with us.
Okay.
And this thing kept coming up, and the minister, every region that we went, he met the media and briefed the media, and this thing kept coming up.
So in other words, it's not scaremongering to say fertilizers are in short supply.
But who says if you just say that fertilizers are in short supply is scaremongering. What he said was that because of that, there was going to be hunger. And he was speaking it from just a narrow point of view. And we told him that even in the northern sector that he used as a case study, hello, am I on it?
Yes, please.
Good. Even in the northern sector, I'm telling you that significantly the supply of fertilizers increases. You see, they have only one planting season. If you don't get them the fertilizers at a point that they needed them, then you should forget it. So the ministry tried as much as possible to get them some of the fertilizers, not in the quantities that they needed, but at least some fertilizers were supplied. To the extent that some were even smuggled out, But that notwithstanding, we are saying that we are not going to experience the food shortage or the hunger that he was talking about, and that was the description that the ministry statement.
But Mr. Ado, as we speak currently, we have some forms of food shortage in the country.
Food shortage, yes, but we don't have food crisis.
Yes,
and I'm telling you that during the planting season every year, it has been like this. Just that this year, because of the factors I have told you earlier, the COVID-19 and the fertilizer production, fertilizer transportation, everything about fertilizer, the whole world. Look, go to our neighboring countries and go and see how they are sweating under COVID in agriculture. We are even fortunate, and they even had to come to Ghana to take some food away. You see, we are fortunate. We have done so well with the planting for food and jobs that has saved the situation. That is why we are talking this way. Otherwise, we would also be in the same soup as they are. So let us not, let's count our blessings and then let us reduce this pessimistic thing about hunger. We are not going to experience any hunger in this country. I mean, I can assure you.
Mr. Nyaba is back on with us. He's a farmer. Mr. Nyaba, you share the Deputy Minister's optimism that we will definitely avert a crisis and we are better off compared to our neighbors when it comes to this. And this is not a Ghana unique problem. This is a global problem that every country is facing because of the COVID, etc. What's your own experience with this? You're a farmer and you represent a group that farm.
Yeah, I think I understand the Deputy Minister. So we don't expect somebody who is in charge of the sector is to ensure that we have enough food to come on air to say that we are going to face food crisis. Yeah, so I do understand him on that score.
But we are not going to face a food crisis, are we? We are not, or we are.
That is his opinion, just like he said earlier. From my perspective, if you put the various factors that we are facing this year compared to last year, it is likely that we are likely not to get the harvest that we got last year. We are likely to get lower harvest compared to what we got last year on several grounds. The middle belt that the minister spoke about, I think we just ended the major season harvest. And let's also put the crops on, specific crops. I think if you're talking of bumper harvest, let's be crop specific. Are we talking about maize, cassava, yam, soya? When you go to the middle belt, places like Techiman, Nkranza, Wenchi, Edra, which is maize hub in that area, they are almost done with the major season harvest, but the harvest doesn't look good at all because the drought actually hit them. When you come to northern part of the country, we have only one season. Now, when you talk of maize, which is the major crop that we grow in this area, the season started well. The rains were okay, but later part of August till now, there has been heavy rains and most crops are looking yellowish. Apart from the rains, the fertilizer that we're expecting, just like the minister admitted, didn't come the way it should have been. Urea for instance, has never come at all. So it is easy for anybody looking at the appearance of the crops and the crops that are coming, when you talk of maize, to conclude that the harvest is likely to be lower than we have last year. Now, when you take rice, for instance, most rice-growing areas in northern part of the country is in the, if you take northern region, for instance, we are talking about places like the valleys around Nasia. Then when we come to Upper East, we are talking about Fumbisi. Northeast, we are talking about Yaba area. This is where we get a lot of rice. Now, most of the rice farmers there also depends on fertilizer from planting for food and jobs, which didn't actually come in the quantities that we expect. Apart from the fertilizer that come under the planting for food and jobs, the open market itself is not available. As we speak, even if you have money to buy open market urea, you will not get some to buy. And those areas too, there's just some few farmers that can claim or talk with authority that they are going to experience higher harvest than they did last year. So in my personal perspective, I haven't done any, I've not taken data across all the areas to say that this is how the situation is going to be like. But my experience with my own farms and the farms of my members suggests that the harvest is likely to be lower than we experienced last year.
Okay, would you say, nonetheless, under the circumstances, you still expect a good harvest?
So that's what I concluded. Some farmers may have good harvest, but majority may have harvest that is lower than what they had last year.
Okay.
So in general, if we have high prices this year, when conditions were good last year, then you should expect that now that we have a bad condition or bad situation, prices are likely to be higher next year than this year. That is my projection, but I haven't done, I have not taken the holistic data to be able to confirm that this is what is going to happen. But looking at the crops and talking to farmers, that is what I can say for now.
I mean, Mr. Caraway, I mean, based on what you also know on the ground, we will definitely avert a crisis, won't we?
No, we can't avert the crisis. The crisis is bound to come because if you look at the staples, which we, from the ministry's own sources of source, is that if you take maize for 2020, where for the ministry, we had increased output by 110%. If that is true, and within 2-3 months, there's shortage of maize in the market, and given the statistics and given the challenges that we have had this year, with the non-availability of fertilizer, you know, and then also on the 15th of July, 2021, a graphic report indicated that the ministry had indicated that they have 4 regions had drought, and that will affect food production for 2021. Then come the following day, that is 16th, the minister came out to say that the planting for food and jobs was struggling for survival, and he gave his reasons. The reasons that the deputy minister is giving for the lack of fertilizer in the market is not what the minister gave. His own boss, the minister, on the 16th of July 2021, said that there was lack of fertilizer in the market because they were not able to pay fertilizer suppliers for supplies that they had made. As a result, they refused to supply fertilizer this year. But what I'm hearing the deputy minister says is that because of the COVID, there has been generally global constraint on fertilizer supply, which also affected Ghana. But his boss did not say that. So all these things put together tells us that we are going to have far less than the output that we had in 2020. So if we had output, for instance, and we are taking maize as an example, if we had over 100% increase, and yet within 2 months into 2021, 3 months into 2023, 4 months into 2020, we had crisis, then what will be the situation in 2022? Now that we are already challenged with production, so production output this year will be far lower than 2020. Even if there's going to be anything, it will never be more than doubled. So we should expect more crisis, serious crisis, 2022. And let me make this point clear. We are not talking about when there's harvest. We all know, and you don't need to rocket science to know that during the harvesting period, prices of foodstuffs in this country come down. And the essence of policy is not to talk about what is not a problem. Our policy is meant to address challenges during the lean season. I expect the Deputy Minister and the Ministry of Agriculture and the government to be telling us that, please, folks, Ghanaians, we have had these challenges around May, June, July. Come 2022, we are not going to have those challenges because we are putting in place A, B, C, D policies to address that. But you cannot just hope. Let's hope that we will have good harvest. What is good harvest? That's very, very subjective. And these are the terms that they use. And they say that we should not talk about semantics. Good is different from bumper harvest. And we have heard them say that we are going to have bumper harvest. Now it's turning out to be that we are going to have good harvest. Which is which? How do you quantify what is good? How do you quantify what is bumper harvest? And in any case, the measures that put in place, does that support that type of conclusion that we are going to have good harvest? When there was lack of fertilizer, which you have indicated, where there was drought, which you have indicated, so how do you then, based on these serious challenges to our agricultural production, still proceed to conclude that we are going to have good harvest, we are going to have bumper harvest, and we should wait until the ending of September, October, November, December, we'll have good harvest. We are not talking about good harvest, bumper harvest during the harvesting period. We are talking about the lean season. And the essence of the planting for food and jobs is meant to address food shortage during the lean season. Otherwise, we can all wait. Whether you tell us or not, when it gets to the harvesting season, there will be availability of food. And there will not be the need for policy. And there will not be the need for the minister to be put there to implement policies to address the needs of Ghanaians. So I think that we can run away from the facts, the reality, but they'll catch up with us. Just like as early as January, when we were told that maize production has gone up by 110%, and just come 2 months, 3 months later, there was no food maize in the market. Now the only explanation they gave is that we had over-exported. We exported more. Meanwhile, if you look at the statistics of exportation, you can see that maize productions, maize exports, rice exports are all declining. Soya exports are all declining. It is only yam which has gone up. So we need to really accept the realities, and all of us will work together to address the challenges that are facing us.
I want to take a quick break. When I return, we'll get into the measures that the Agric Ministry is taking to avert a crisis. Stay with me. My guest on PM Express, Mr. Yalfred Pomado. He is a Deputy Agric Minister. Also with us is Dr. Charles Nyaba with the Peasant Farmers Association, and Edward Carraway with the General Agricultural Workers Union. Mr. Pomado, I know the Agric Ministry is putting in place, has already actually announced a series of policy interventions to make sure that we have enough for now and also for the future and averting a crisis. One of them is the ban on the exportation of staples to the neighboring countries. How is that been implemented, and what other measures have we rolled out?
Yeah, thank you so much. But before I get there, my brother, the last
Mr. Edward Carraway with the General Agriculture Workers Union.
Exactly. I'm happy that all of us are farmers. So we are not speaking from a layman's point of view. That in agriculture, in farming, whether you like it or not, you will run through good times and bad times, bad weather, good weather. So today, if you've had some challenges, that does not mean you have crisis. You see, he was referring to my minister's statement that he made, that the graphic published. If you read the story very well to the end, you know that the minister was talking in context as far as the fertilizer issues were concerned. That one, we've gone past that stage, so I'm not going to belabor the points over there. But I want to assure Ghanaians that the ministry is not oblivious of the challenges that we've gone through this year. We are in September. September is even on the curve, and very soon we will hit October. You see, so what we have put in place, apart from the ban on exportation of the staples across the country, that has helped to even stabilize some prices up to this time. If that measure had not been put in place and the exportation had continued, maybe we wouldn't know what would have happened in this country. So that is a policy that we are going to continue with it until our situation improves considerably, that we have so much and we have surpluses, then we can open our borders for export. Secondly, the buffer stock company, their main duty is to mop up all produce that come from the farmers, from the farm gates and from the markets and all that, store them and then release them during the lean season, that's the planting season, to stabilize prices.
Yeah.
They were challenged. The buffer stock, understandably, were challenged because they didn't even have enough storage capacity. Now, the ministry has taken delivery of over 80 warehouses across the length and breadth of this country. And we are going to add this, we are going to put this at the disposal of the buffer stock company to buy and store our farm produce, so that in the lean season, they will begin to release these ones to stabilize prices. So these are two major initiatives that we think that, looking at the situation this year, I'm not among those who say that because the situation up north is like that, maybe we are not going to have good harvest or bumper harvest or whatever. I am very optimistic about it. Okay. I'm talking from what the information we've gathered from what directories around the country.
Okay.
And we know that we are going to avert whatever has happened in this country in the past 3-4 months. And then let's also know that every year, this has been cyclical. Every year in the planting season, prices go up. But as the new crops come, prices begin to find their levels. And that is exactly what we are going to experience between now and December. And then from January, February, March, April going, that is where the buffer stock company will come in to release the foods that they will store.
Mr. Frimponado, I'm grateful very much for laying out the policies. I'm delighted that you could join us. Gentlemen, I'm grateful. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And this is one of the things that everybody experienced in the market. Hopefully, we avert this crisis with the policies that have been put in place. Enjoy the rest of your evening.